Dear friends, was this man actually possessed by a demon? Or was he what we would call today mentally ill or emotionally disturbed? If it really were a demon, how did it take possession of him? Did it occur through some guilt on his part or through accident? Are there similar circumstances today? Or is just a pre-scientific way of explaining strange and unusual behavior? All these questions we do not really have definite answers for. But despite the question marks, there's one area where this story communicates quite clearly. It speaks to us eloquently about the dark side of human nature. There's something in human nature that is very wrong and very perplexing. Why did this man start screaming in the midst of a worship service? But this kind of conduct is not confined to the first century. We hear about it, we read about it every day. We scratch our heads and wonder, how can someone abuse an innocent child? I scratch my head when I see on the television reports of people in some of our cities night after night on a rampage and destroying property, endangering lives with protests and clamoring to defund the police. And how can anyone with any decency at all make a living, actually make money, by exploiting children and causing them to be addicted to drugs? I don't have the answer to those questions. What I do know is that there is a dark side, an evil side to human nature. And I think if we're honest enough, we have to admit that we are somehow part of that problem. Our failures may not be as obvious or as dramatic as some, but they're just as real and just as baffling. In truth, there's probably not a single person in our congregation this morning who has not at one time or another looked back on some event in his life and wondered about the how and why of his behavior. Who among us has never said, I just don't know what got into me? Or how could I ever say such a thing? Or why did I ever do that? And you know, you see, we're not alone in that, because this is Peter when he went out and wept bitterly following his denial of the Lord. In his mind had to be all of those questions. How could I have stooped so low? What went wrong with me? But this strange story of demonic possession has an encouraging message. It tells us that this wrongness within, whatever we choose to call it, is something alien, an intruder from outside, something that does not belong in us and should never be accepted as the norm. What that means is that we should never excuse our behavior by shrugging our shoulders and saying, well, that's just the way I am. That may be the way we are, but that's not the way we were meant to be. There is something much better in each of us than the ugliness and the pettiness that sometimes rises to the surface. I think it's, just as the body can get infected with harmful bacteria and viruses, so also the mind and the spirit can be corrupted by attitudes and ideas and intentions that are wrong. We should not make peace with wrongness. We should not allow it to settle down and become at home in our hearts. This gospel story today also teaches that whatever is wrong with us, Christ has the power to set it right. We read the Gospels not so much to learn what Jesus did 2,000 years ago. We're not primarily history buffs. We learn them, we read them primarily to know what Jesus continues to do in the year 2021. He continues to cast out what is wrong in us, what is evil in us, if we ask him to. I don't mean to suggest that in Jesus we have an easy or automatic solution to our problems. It may seem so from this story, but that's not the case. The unclean spirit was immediately cast out, but where the man went from there, we really don't know. One thing is certain, he had a long road to travel from that day forward. If that man went on to make something good of himself, to do something good with his life, he had a lot of hills to climb, a lot of faith to build, a lot of discipline to exercise. Christ is the answer to the dark side of human nature. But the answer is not easy or automatic. We can change the direction of our lives instantaneously, but we still have a long way to travel after that. Yet we can face the future with courage and confidence, knowing that He will be walking with us, knowing that He will lift us up when we fall, forgive us when we fail, and start us on our way again. And that, my friends, is the good news in today's gospel message. Amen.